Okay, so next project now is basically a revisit to one of the old projects I've done already. I weren't overly happy with it. I mean, I like it, but I weren't overly happy with it. My record player stand. So the way it is, like I say, I like it, but it's not quite what I envisioned. So I'm working on a different one. This is one of the legs that I've already got assembled, and I'm going to go on to the next one now, get that one sorted. But essentially there's going to be a pair of these, one at the front, one at the back, with a piece on top, which I think I'm going to make out of some padauk that I've got already. This is padauk as it is. But I have this piece of padauk, which should be long enough for me to cut down and then make into a board. Should be plenty big enough for what I want then. The whole thing will be made out of padauk, which I really like padauk. I like the way it smells when it's cut, which is a bonus. I like the way it looks when it's finished. Once I've got my wood finish on it, it comes out really well. I may apply a different finish with this. I've got a Danish oil or something like that. I might put that on there instead, see what that does with the colour. But I like the fact that it'll all be made out of padauk. So the way it will stand is you'll have one of these, like I say, at the front and one at the back. The records will actually stand in this way, so that will be the front of it. So it's going to look a bit funky, but I like that. It's all cut at angles. Now it is all 20 degrees. Everything's cut at 20 degrees. I've not messed about with it. I wanted to make it as simple as possible, so I've left it like that. Again, the padauk top will sit flat on top of here. I'll put a couple of connectors on here so they will allow some wood movement. But that's it. So next step is cut up some more bits. I'll get you resituated and we'll crack on. So that's what it is. Just sneak up on it. Don't go too mad, because then it ends up becoming too sloppy. So I will clean it all up with the chisel. So ignore this one. But that's what it'll be like. So like I say, you can do it with a table saw. Because it's a bit of a pain in the backside to get my table saw out sometimes, it's easy for me to do it with this. I've got the depth stuff I can set on it. And obviously I can do double motors on it as well. It makes it easy. So now all I want to do is clean up the insides of them, get them nice and smooth. I'm using the chisel to help cut the corners a little bit tighter, just so they sit in a lot flatter. I need to take a little bit more off that one. Now remember, I never claimed to be a fine woodworker, and this project is only for my house. And if I'm happy with them, and the other half's happy, then we're happy. So that's 2 lots of legs. So now you'll get a bit more of a feel for how it will be. There'll be a bit of a space between it. Just line it up so you can see on there, like that. So like I said, the records, the LPs, the vinyls, they will sit through that way, and then I have a speaker that will go underneath it, and then obviously the record player hi-fi system, stereo, whatever you want to call it, that'll plonk on top. So what I didn't do with this one, which is what I should have done, and I reminded myself before I started gluing anything together, is to give it all a sand over while it's still in pieces, because it's so much easier to get to all the parts. Now the bits I am going to avoid are too much sanding on the ends here, just because I am happy with those gaps and I don't want to open them up anymore. So I want to sort of leave them alone, so to speak. And also that will give me a reference point of the legs and that as well. So yeah, let's crack on. I've really got to remember to push the record button. Right, now let's leave that to dry up while we sort out the top. Right, so this is the piece of sapele which I got from Surrey Timbers. Like I said to you in one of my other videos, they're a place I use quite a bit for a lot of my woods, especially the hardwoods and exotic hardwoods. I'm going to break this down into pieces, glue it together. That's going to make my top. Obviously once it's glued together it will all be nicely finished. It's a nice chunk. I'm going to leave it the same thickness. I'm only going to sort of finish sanding it. I'm not going to do anything else with it. But for now, just chop it down into the pieces. Helps if you take the stop back off, doesn't it? Now we're ready to get this glued up. I've had it, I should say not had it, I've run it through the planer, the tabletop planer that I've got, and got the edges as close to each other as I can, as smooth as I can. So through glue up and clamping, it'll be as good as it can be. Yeah, I'll be happy with that. Let's crack on. Now I know masking tape isn't really the thing to use for this, but that's all I've got down there. And the masking tape isn't going to bother me so much as getting another piece of wood stuck to it, so that's what I'm going for. And it is just to help keep everything all in line. And keep it as flat as possible. So as possible I am going to get a bit of wood stuck to it as I've run out of tape, but here's what it is. I'll deal with that when I deal with it. So I want to make sure these are getting a good purchase on it. I'm not clamping anything up too tight as of yet, just because I want to make sure, like I say, everything is sitting flush, and then I can clamp a lot tighter. Now these clamps, if anyone's interested, these ones here, and actually these ones I got from a company called Rutland's. Now I've used them for a few of my tools. I'll see if I can put a link to their page on the description. But I've used them for my planer, my bandsaw, these clamps, pocket hole jig that I've got, the dialing jig that I've got. For a lot of different things I've used them for, and they're a really good firm. Again, there's another one that I would recommend. They are very reasonably priced. A lot of the time they've got offers on their website as well, so you'll be able to find a deal on there regardless. And if you do get anything from there, let them know you heard it through Shed Creations. Yeah? Let's try and get some sort of offers going, some deals going. So that, again, is it done for now. Let's leave it dry. Hopefully by the time this dries, I would have had a bit more work done on the legs. The legs should be dry soon enough, and I'll be able to give them a little bit of a filling if needed, and a good final sand over before we can start looking at assembly. But of course we've got to get this done, this prep first, so we'll catch you in a while. Okay, so that's both legs now all glued together. They both need finishing. So I had a little hole I filled here with the glue and dust trick again. So I've got to sand it over. I've got to give this one its first sanding, get rid of all the excess glue, fill up a couple of little gaps that are there. Like I said, it's my first time I've done any joinery like this, so I know there's going to be imperfections. But it's alright, I can work on it, that's cool. They're done. Let's get the top out of the clamps. Now that came off a lot easier than what I thought it would do. Now that is the top. Let's do a little quick sit together, just to give you an explanation how it's going to sit. Now let's get it more roughly lined up. That's a bit closer to how it'll be. Obviously on the camera it looks like these are a bit off, but they're not, they're actually in line. So let's go in a bit more. So there's a preview. Now it is a very slight preview, but that's a preview. I am contemplating on putting a brace straight between the middle here, just because I think it will hold it better, stop it from having a backwards and forward motion. Not 100% certain on that yet, but I do think I'm going to go that route. I do think I'll put one in. I might try something funky with that joint as well. Test me out properly. But I am going to have the grain showing at the end. I think it'll look nicer. And I think obviously for the alignment of the movement of the timber, I think it'll work better. Now, that's the way, obviously for most people it would go. But because I'm going to be using it for the stand for my radio, my stereo with the record player on it, I'm going to have it this way because I want to put the records in from here. Now I know I could put the records in from the side still, so this still could be the front. And if I'm honest, it may still be. It's pretty much going to be almost a square unit, so it should fit either way. But we'll play with it. So let's get cleaning this top up. I think that's the thing I want to do next, get that tidied up. Now it's not my first time doing a glue up this way for a top, but I'm really happy with this one actually. Obviously it's something I do when I do my boards. There's not much glue on this side, as you'd expect. Obviously the ends need a trimming. I do that on my table, so I'll just get that running flat. So we're at the stage now where we can take the clamps off the legs and then start giving everything its finished sanding. And then I've got these little clips for the legs. These little figure of 8 clips, but they've got a recess on one side to allow the screw to sit flat, and then a recess on the other side for the screw to sit flat. So then you can put one side onto the leg and one side onto the tabletop, but everything is sitting pretty much flush. So that's one of the other jobs I need to do, is just router out or use maybe like a small Forstner bit and just inset a little gap there, a little hole there for them fixings to fit into, so I can then screw it to the top. So I don't think I explained it, but what I've done to allow, or to, should I say, stop the movement of the table from rocking either from side to side or back to forwards, depending on what orientation I put it. I've put a little brace in the middle here, but I've done it in the same way as what I've done the design for the legs. There is a gap around it at the moment because first times. You can see that. Now that darkness all around it, that's the glue, but there is a small gap, so it's all recessed, so it's nice and flat all across here and all underneath in it as well, so it looks pretty decent, I think. Once the top and everything's on there and it's all solid, it sits nice and flat. So a bit of a rough sanding still on this part alone, just to get the ends to sit nice and level, a bit flush. There's not enough meat there for me to get the flush trim saw out and give it a chop it off. So I'm just going to use the sander with, I think I've got a 60 grit on there in a minute, and just knock that back just so they sit flush. And then, like I say, it's just a nice little final sand over everything. So stay with us. Okay, that's everything's had a good sanding over now. So the next step now, top's been taken to what it has been, to 320, grain popped, all ready to go. I'm gonna mark these out and then use a Forstner bit, I think, to recess it for where the bracket's gonna go. Don't need to go too deep, so that's why I'm only going to use a Forstner bit. I I was contemplating on using a router, but I think that's a bit overkill really. I don't need to go that mad with it. I want it to keep as much meat on it and in the leg as possible to try and avoid splitting. And we're going to do the same on all the legs. Once I've done this step, everything will then have another good clean off. I've got some wood cleaner and stuff. I'm going to give everything a hoover over first, then a good clean up, and then I'm going to actually do Danish oil on this one. Just from a test that I've done and the bits I've seen, Danish oil seems to really make the sapele pop. I'm not sure whether I'm going to put a sealer over it afterwards. I think I'm leaning towards the point I will do. Now again, this is just something completely out of my head. I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but in reality, when I started to lay it out, it didn't quite work out. So I then adapted that style of what I was doing and come up with this. And I must say, I'm really happy with this actually. I know the other half is as well. So once it's all completely oiled and sealed and finished off properly, I think it'll look pucker. Alright, so that is the table all complete now, apart from the finish. So that's the next step. I've just given it a hoover off. I'm actually going to use some wood cleaner and just give it a good wipe over as well, get rid of as much dust as I can, or hopefully all the dust. And then I'm going to apply the oil. Bear with me. I'm actually going to take the top off again so I can do it all separate, just so I can get everywhere on the legs that I need to do and everywhere on the top, make sure everything's covered properly. So everything's had a good clean off. I've put the top over, let it dry out now as well. And then this now, it's going to start getting its first coat of the Danish oil that I'm going to use. This is where we start seeing how nice the actual sapele looks once it's got a finish on it. I really do like the way it looks. Like a Wally, I forgot to record a outro video for this one, but this is the end product. All it had in the end was just a couple of coatings of the Danish oil. Didn't put a sealer on the end, so I didn't need to. I've added a couple of pictures to the end of the video to show how it is in situ with how I envision the LPs to sit. I hope you all like it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and give it a share. Why not? Thanks. See you next time.